So hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This is the Riverwood Conservancy's webinar, 42 Mammals and Where to Find Them in the City with Andrew Budziak. My name is Stephanie, I'm the Community Program Coordinator at the Riverwood Conservancy. I hope you are all enjoying this beautiful weather and getting outdoors. I want to say special thanks to Credit Valley Conservation for supporting all of the work that we do. Now, before we get started, I just want to mention that all of our June programs are now on our website. So please feel free to register for as many free programs as you would like. On your screen now, you should see our entire calendar of virtual events, and we have a lot of interesting guest speakers in June, so please check them out. As well, since we are all stuck at home, if your family, club, or community group are interested in virtual programs such as Healing with Nature, trivia nights, wildlife-specific programs, or more, register at the riverwoodconservancy.org/virtual discovery. And if you would like to support our virtual and hopefully soon in-person programs and conservation at Riverwood's habitat and wildlife, please consider donating on our website. Before we get to our wonderful speaker this evening, the Riverwood Conservancy would like to acknowledge that the land on which we operate is the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, Wendat, and Haudenosaunee nations. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this place is still home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. And this evening, we have Andrew Budziak back again for another great webinar, who is a Toronto-based journalist, filmmaker, and photographer who has a passion for telling stories about human-wildlife interactions. Andrew's work has appeared on numerous outlets, including the CBC, BBC, ESPN, CNN, and PBS. His most recent documentary, Poisoned Earth, looks at the controversial wolf poisoning program in Alberta. Andrew is currently photographing all 42 wild mammals that call Toronto home. So welcome, Andrew, once again. And we also have two volunteers with us from the Riverwood Conservancy, both Thomas and Kathy, who will be assisting with this program as well. So a huge thanks to both of you for taking some time out of your evening to join us. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat and the Q&A bar, and we will address them at the very end of the presentation. And I think that is all from me, so I will hand it over to Andrew. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Kathy and Thomas, for making this happen. Some of you might have been on the one I did a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to do things a little bit different today for two reasons. The first is that I wrote an article recently for the CBC that just kind of gives a bit of a background for why I'm doing this. So I'm not going to go into that. That's super heavy. But there is a bit of background about my photo project and why I decided to do this. The other reason why I'm going to change it up is the other one was like the middle of the day. This is kind of in the evening, so perhaps you just wrapped dinner, maybe a couple of you had a glass of wine or a beer, and for those of you that are homeschooling, home teaching right now, maybe that's like 16 rum and cokes. So I'm gonna do tonight more as like a storytelling thing. I want to use some photos as examples, but I just want to move through all of this and try to illustrate as much as possible, the work I do and how to get out there, and photograph wildlife. Stephanie in her kind introduction mentioned that I'm photographing Toronto's urban wildlife, Toronto's urban mammals. There are maybe 42, maybe 41. I'll get into that a bit later. The reason I started doing this very briefly is I moved near Toronto's Don Valley a couple months ago, and I've always sort of traveled doing my photography and video elsewhere, around the world, around Canada, and just being in the area, I started shooting what was around here, and it was unbelievable. It opened my eyes to truly what urban wildlife is, and I became addicted. I just started shooting. Nonstop, and pulled together a little bit of a list, and I've kind of been checking off the animals as I go. I don't just photograph mammals, anything that's great that I come across on the trail, and I'll get to some of that in a bit too. I know that a bunch of you are gonna ask gear questions because that always happens. It's like the most common DM that I get or email. So I'll get that out of the way first. This is my setup. This is it right here. This is the whole thing. This is all I have. So this right here is a rain cover that I got online for like 20 bucks. It covers everything. Comes on and off. Relatively easy. That's it. I have on here a 70 to 200. This is a Sigma, the Sigma Sport. In terms of like wildlife lenses, this is a really good kind of affordable lens. The image quality is awesome. It's a lot cheaper than the Sony, Canon ones, or Nikon, and Sigma makes them for all of them, which is great. This is my body, which is a 60 Mark II, and this is new. This down here is a battery grip, and I've been shooting so much over the last little while that what I was realizing was that my pinky was wrapping underneath, and after really long days, I was getting pains kind of down my arm and down the side there. So I actually had to take a week off shooting to have it get back to normal. And this grip, it's nice. It carries an extra battery, and it was like perfect. It helped fit my hand. So I don't know if that's like an age thing, but for me, like ergonomics and getting the feel right is becoming increasingly important. And then this is just a shoulder strap. It goes across the shoulder like this. I find being out on long days with something around your neck, it just could hurt a little bit. So that's my whole kit. I don't go out with a backpack generally. I don't carry water for some reason. I always have it in my car, but I don't know. I've got to get over that, because especially, we're getting these 30-degree days. I'm really kicking myself when I'm on the far end of the trail or the far end of the bush, and that river water starts looking really delicious. So that's my kit. In terms of my work, Instagram is like, Instagram's kind of my home for everything. That's where I post all of my photos. It's Andrew_Budziak. What I like about Instagram, okay, what I don't like about Instagram is that the pictures are kind of small, right? Even when you look at them on the computer, they're compressed, they're not super big. But what I really like Instagram is that I can share like one photo or a couple photos and then have the story right there. And that's it. That's it. That's all that's what you're getting. And that's what I want to share. So for my work, for my photography, pictures are great. I love pictures. I want them to be sharp. But what comes first to me is the storytelling. And that's what I'm going to spend the bulk of this seminar tonight talking about. It really is, photography it's all up here. You can improve your photos, by thinking about them, by planning ahead, by thinking about what you want to do. So when I started this project, it was great, and I was photographing these mammals, and there was some media attention and all of this. But what was really nice is I was able to shine a light on our green space, our urban green space, and what lives there. So that was cool, because I got to kind of share my passion, but not just that, but my concerns as well. We have it's tricky. It's tricky having green space in this city. There are a lot of pressures from development to erosion to overuse to all of these things. So I don't want to get overly preachy in what I do, but I hope by sharing photos and sharing stories, I could maybe help people fall in love with urban wildlife, which would allow us to maybe think a little bit differently about how we manage our cities, how we manage our resources. So that's the introduction. That's a bit about me and what I do. Let me get in right away to how to get out there. I'm sure some of you on this, you range from maybe beginners to experienced photographers, but I'm pretty sure everyone out here, everyone listening tonight, has been out for a hike. You've been out maybe on an urban trail, maybe through Algonquin, maybe somewhere north, a little more wild. And you know that you know that you don't know what you're going to come across. That's the best part about nature. That's the best part about, you know, places like Riverwood or the Don or the Credit or any of these places, is you head out and things surprise you. And when we go out with the intention of taking pictures, I think so often the idea is, well, we get what we get. We're gonna go out and, you know, whatever we see, we're gonna find it. We're gonna get a photo of that. Recently, I've tried to change my thinking around that. And what I've been trying to do is kind of imagine ahead of time the photo I want, the composition I want, the lighting I want, how I want to get these photos. So some of this comes, you know, inspiration. You're watching a movie, you see a great scene, you see some photographer's work, and that inspires you. Those kind of things, that inspiration, those elements, those visual cues you see, that stuff you really should be putting into your work. I just showed you a camera setup that some of you might not have. You might not have access to something of that size. Don't worry about it. I use my iPhone all the time. I just did a 4-part video series for the CBC on how to nature photography, and in every one of those, I'm using examples using my iPhone. So I had this image in my head for a while that I wanted of a swan at High Park. They're always there. It's like so easy. You know, swans are beautiful. They do really weird things with their neck. You can get some awesome photos. So I'm going to show you the photo I got. This is the photo I got. It works. It works. There's the swan, there's the sunset, there's some water dripping off the swan's nose. But this photo could have been a lot better. I had to crop it, the angle, you know, I could have got a little bit more reflection, I could have got more of those ripples. And this was as wide as I can go on my setup. This would have been a much better photo had I used my iPhone. This would have been, like, there's no doubt in my mind this would have been better if I'd used my iPhone. And it was just later. I came home and I thought about it. I'm like, it was in my pocket. Why didn't I use it? And you know, sorry, I'm just okay. Yeah. So you know, it just always be thinking that even if you are using a great setup, sometimes the iPhone just helps. So you don't need a super expensive setup to get into your photos. But let's get back to leaving when you set out. So that's a photo that I knew I wanted, that swan, and I saw the light was nice one evening, and I went down, and I got that. So what I want to do for myself when I go out is like, hey, there's a story I want to tell. How am I going to tell that story? If anyone's heard me talk before, you know I'm obsessed with coyotes. I love coyotes. I think they're just such an awesome creature. They're remarkable. They're incredible. And there's a photo I wanted to show for a long time. There are people that still have preconceived notions about coyotes, that they're vicious, that they're out there to do harm to you, to harm to your dogs, which is totally untrue. You know, it's incredible that we can share the landscape with this predator, and there are so few problematic interactions. So I really wanted to show a coyote like as a coyote. Here's this animal doing what they do. And I had a couple of coyote encounters, but I couldn't do it. And I was constantly trying to get this one shot. And then I did get it. And this is where I landed. This is the shot that I ended up with. That's the same swan. Sorry, everybody. So this is it. This is the photo. This is the story that I've been trying to tell for so long. This is a coyote doing a coyote thing. It's not angry at me. It's got a vole in its mouth, and it's showing me this is just coyote saying, this is my lunch. This is for me. This is for my kit. This is for whoever. This is what we share the landscape with. Look at that. Like that's an incredible animal. And at the same time that I wanted to get that photo, I also wanted to show how this animal is set apart from almost from the rest of us. I know it's a weird thing to say. We see them, we interact with them, but there was something. I don't want to say spiritual. I don't like putting those kind of categories on wildlife. But this is something that I wanted to capture, and the moment came along, and I got it, and I was very thrilled. Which is coyote out there going for a walk across a frozen pond. I saw the pond. I had seen this pond a couple times before. I knew there were coyotes in the area, and I was just dreaming of getting this shot. It took me a lot of trips to where this was to get it, but I did get it. The last photo, this photo and this photo, I would not have gotten had I not been thinking about those before. We've all been there. You see something and you get so excited. You get so excited about coming across wildlife when it comes across in front of you. I know hunters call that buck fever. And I feel it when I see a coyote. I'm like, oh, like I almost forget, how to take a picture and fumbling and bringing it up to my eye. And I think having the right mindset going into this is really going to help you kind of land the photos that you want. I wasn't done with coyotes. I don't think I'm ever done with coyotes. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Sweden or Norway or any parts of Scandinavia, but there's something so enchanting about the kind of art and film and photography and literature there. They love this darkness. There's kind of this great darkness. And right now, there is some awesome wildlife photography coming out of Scandinavia. And it doesn't matter the time of year. Their forests are incredible. Like they're all magic. Like no wonder people there believe in gnomes, right? Like you see the forest. Like of course there are magical things like roaming around there. So our forests are incredible, but there's like this kind of like dark magic in the Scandinavian forest, and that's a scene that I've been having in my head, like just so much. It's like I've seen what these people are doing there, and they're like us, they've been in lockdown. What do they have to do besides go out and take photos? So I've been like having this idea of a forest and of lighting in my head. It's not a very complex, like I'm not doing anything crazy. It's just, the right light, the right kind of greenery. And a couple, this was last week. I was out for a walk, checking out this area that I visit regularly. And there's like this crazy little gorge thing. And to go down it and go up the other side, it doesn't look like a lot, but you're exhausted by the time you get up there. So it had been kind of mucky. I had gone, but I thought, you know what the heck, I'll go, I'll check it out. So walking down, I was halfway up, and like something leapt almost from above me. Like it kind of felt like it was high up on the gorge. It came down and it sprinted. I was like, what was that? That wasn't a deer. And I got my answer because like just below me at the bottom of this gorge, there was this yipping, yip, 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 yip. I'm like, oh, that's a coyote. And as I kind of walked, got on this path and kind of walked, the coyote was keeping pace with me, yipping. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I know exactly what's happening. I'm being escorted. And what escorting is, it's a thing that coyotes do where they kind of draw a line. They get between you and their pups and their babies, and they yip at you, and they keep a line, and they keep pace with you. What they're doing, they're escorting you away from their territory. They're not being vicious, they're not being hostile. They're letting you know, hey, don't come any closer because I've got babies over here. So let's go this way. So I was walking, and it would stop and it would look at me, and I'd get a photo, and it would yip again. I'm like, all right, I'm going. So keep going. We reached the end of its territory, and it was really interesting because there was a log, and that log kind of was like, this is clear. This is the end of this coyote's territory. It uses this log as a marker, just like we would use a road, or we use curbs or fences, like this kind of fallen log. So the coyote kind of went to the other side of that, and was kind of looking at me and not really yipping, and just kind of sniffing, and was kind of curious about me at this point. And the forest just was awesome, and it gave way, and it was kind of this light and this quality that I'd been waiting for. And there was this fantastic animal, and once again, this was a shot that I had had in my mind, so I was kind of able to get it. And here it is. So I'm like happy with this photo because I like coyotes. I like the coyote itself. But for me, what's really important here is the forest. They're kind of these deep greens. There are these reds. The way the coyote's standing there, the light. And once again, I don't think it's a photo I would have gotten had I not been thinking about this stuff ahead of time. And these 3 photos, so this one, this one, this one, I'm showing them to you because I like them. I like coyotes. Technically these photos are all fun. They're in focus. The composition's not weird. Everything's, everything I think in most of these is kind of where it should be. But there's another layer to these, which is like really, really hard to achieve, and that's why I want to show these. And it's like 0.1% of my time I might get this, which is a story. Like sometimes an individual photo just does such a great job of telling a story, and you can feel it right away when you see a photo and there's something contained just beyond the subject and the lighting and all that. There's a little bit more there. Tells you something about the subject, tells you something about the environment. Like that's just such a great thing to try to achieve, to go for. And once again, like you don't have to be you don't have to be a wildlife photographer for 20 years. On day 1, you should be thinking story. If you go out tomorrow to your nearby park with a phone, like tell that story. I see beautiful images all the time, and you see them on Facebook, and you're like, oh, that's a nice bird, right? That's a nice bird. But that's all it is. I would take a photo where maybe it's a bit blurry or the lighting's off, but it nails that story, right? And if you could get storytelling into your mind and into your photos, you're going to be so much happier with the results, and it's just gonna shine through. So tell those stories, have your pictures in mind, like keep this stuff in mind, what you want ahead of time before you head out onto the trail. So the next thing that I'm going to move on to talk about is how to find wildlife, and the answer to that is you find wildlife outside. Go outside. Like that's where it is. And literally like outside, like one step outside, you're going to find stuff. It's there. It could be in your backyard. We know this. It could be in trees. It could be in the path, but you don't have to go very far. And what I found was when I started shooting urban wildlife as opposed to stuff that's 100,000 miles away from my house, is it almost became like the closer it was to my house, the cooler it was. On New Year's Day, there was a red-tailed hawk landed on a house across the road, and a hawk kind of far away. It's like, I don't care. I'm not going to get a good photo of that. Whatever. I've seen hawks, but like that one was close to my house. That was great. I'm like, oh, look at that. It's right there. So that's kind of my smarmy answer, is that, yeah, they're right outside. But in terms of techniques for finding it, or you want to get out there, you want to be a little more involved, here's the secret. Like here's the big trick, the big whatever. The more research you do into your animal that you're trying to get a photograph of, you're going to have like way better chances of finding that animal. So, I've already spoken about, storytelling, keeping things in your mind, compositions and lighting, things you want to do. Yeah, but if you don't find your subject, forget it. I'm always trying to have just like a book on my nightstand or on the go. I'm reading one about beavers right now, which is called Eager, which is like the laziest title ever, but it's a really good book. And it's helping me. It's helping me understand them, their behaviors when they show up, where they're likely to be found. And it helps, first of all, like time of day, right? What time of day are these animals active? What do they generally do? Are they out walking around? Do they stick to the same area? Do they frequent these areas? So the more research you do, you're much more likely to come across them in those instances. The other thing is, like, people share on Facebook. People post photos. People put locations. If you're looking for a deer and you see something on Facebook, yeah, like, go go to that spot. I'll get into ethics a little bit later, but people share locations. They're out there. Do your digging. Just don't go out at 2 in the afternoon and expect to like see that scene from The Lion King, where every animal in the kingdom has come out. That's not going to happen. You got to put in your time. You got to do your research, and that's the trick. And I went over this a little bit last time, but I think it's worth repeating. It's hard to go out and look for every animal. You're not generally going to come across great stunning scenes of like birds, which are up here, mammals, which are here, and amphibians and reptiles, which are down here. And when you're walking, you can only kind of look one place. I mean, obviously, you look in front of you, you're going to break your neck. But if you're looking for birds, if you're out and in your mind you want to photograph birds, like, look for birds, right? Be scanning the branches. Be looking up there. If you're looking for deer or for coyotes, be scanning the bush, be scanning in front of you. And if you're looking for reptiles and amphibians, look down and walk extremely slowly. I know that sounds obvious. It's something that I learned only recently, and it's really, really helped me in being successful and actually finding what I'm looking for. I have a friend. I went for a hike with a friend who's mad because I have some owl photos and he doesn't, and he was looking at his shoes during the walk. I was like, "Hey man, how many owls do you see like on the ground in front of you? That's not where owls like to be." So, heads up. And like those two things, doing your research and kind of keeping an eye on where these things are, and not expecting to get everything, in every walk, that's really gonna like improve your chances. The other thing is, the more you go, the more you're gonna find. I mean, I've gone weeks without seeing anything super interesting, and then it's just there all of a sudden. But you certainly increased your chances by going out and being out on the regular and kind of being out a lot. Let me talk about how to photograph, how to get these pictures once you come across these animals. I'll show you an example here. Another one. So here's a raccoon. I love raccoons. I've been trying to get I was trying to get a photo of one. I wanted this photo. I wanted this photo because it wasn't like going through the trash or doing those things that we kind of lure and tempt raccoons to do by leaving our trash out, leaving our garage open, and things like that. So I wanted a raccoon. So this little guy had just woken up from a nap. You can see it had given himself a bit of a bath on his head. It's got that cowlick there. This was a surprisingly hard photo to get. And the reason is that is way high up in a tree. Like, that's really, really far up there. I had to like zoom everything into my lens. This is a super cropped image. That was really far. And I didn't know what I was focusing on. Autofocus on cameras, it's good, it's getting even better. But when you're trying to focus on an animal that has black eyes and like a black bandit mask around those eyes, it's really, really hard. So obviously when you're shooting an animal, unless you're trying to get an action or something like that, you want the eyes in focus. So let me just go through a couple little things here about tips for getting a photo like this, and some stuff in general. Watch your exposure when you're shooting animals with fur, because often fur, it reflects the light or it's dark. It's really tricky. So maybe go under a little bit. If you're shooting a darker animal, you want to underexpose a little bit to make sure you get it. you know, get the fur, look at it when it's overexposed to make sure you're getting the whites and kind of find the balance there. For this one, I had to literally manually focus. I was staring up for like the 3 minutes I was with this raccoon. It was a tricky photo to get. And then I waited, and what I was waiting for is I wanted it to turn its head a little bit. So you see the little glint in the eye, its right eye, screen left. That glint, I could see that from way down from where I was, and that was a huge, stupendous help. So that's something I'm trying to use more and more, the glint in the eye. I also used it here. You could see the glint in the eye, and that's what I focused on when the coyote looked up and hit the sun, and its beautiful kind of green eyes popped. I was able to capture that. So that's something I've been kind of struggling with. Everybody struggles with that when you're doing wildlife, getting that focus. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. That's kind of a technical tip. That's a pretty technical tip that, you know, is really only applicable to, you know, long lens DSLR photography. If you're using your phone, if you're using a point and shoot camera, if you're using a GoPro, so essentially something that's you're not going to have a lot of range, you're not going to be able to get those tight shots, but you're still going to be able to get those awesome nature scenes. You know, maybe you can kind of get close and crop on your phone. Constantly be thinking background. It's hard to do because there's animals like right in front of you, but be thinking what's in that whole frame. There's nothing worse than getting a photo of a wild animal and there's like a plastic bag in the tree. Like that will ruin your photo. Also, try to get like man-made shapes out of the background. So unless you're trying to do something specific, if you get a great wild animal shot and there's like an apartment building in the background, that's not going to be awesome. Like that's going to kind of take the viewer away from what you're trying to do. Place that animal somewhere cool, right? So move around. Don't, you know, once again, we'll get into this, but don't get right in the animal's face. Move around, shift, play with the background for those couple minutes that you're with that animal, you're having that interaction. Try a couple of different things. iPhone photography is getting so good, and I'm seeing stuff that's like unreal that people have been doing with iPhones. And the best photos, I mean, it just with the photo, it all comes down to the composition. They're really intuitive in terms of lighting and all of that stuff. They're even pretty good at figuring out focus. So it's up to you to get that right background, to get that positioning right. And once again, like I've been doing photography for a number of years now, since I was like 17, almost close to 20 years now. And I'm still struggling with that. Backgrounds and placing the animal. I'm always coming home and looking at me like, oh, come on. Like, Andrew, look at that pylon. What are you doing? There's an orange pylon, like, you know, over that raccoon's shoulder. Like, just move a little bit. Those are the things that are really going to help. I like telling stories. It's not necessarily for every time. Sometimes you just want to go get a nice picture and have some fun. I know you see this thing and you show your friends. But if you are serious about storytelling, sometimes one photo isn't going to do it. You want to get that series of photos, and that doesn't happen by accident. When you see a really good photo essay or you see a really good collection of photos, that photographer was thinking about a sequence in a series of photos, and they thought, here's the story, here's how I'm going to tell it. I did that yesterday. It was one of the few times this year where I've come across a situation and I'm like, I'm going to need a few images to tell this story. I was out for a hike on a river looking for, I don't know, stuff in the water, and I came across one of those little areas where there's like, you know, a bunch of branches stuck up against the bank. And I was just looking at it because, you know, maybe there's a muskrat or something fun is going to pop its head out. And this log started doing this. I was like, logs don't normally do that. And then the log started blowing bubbles. I said, logs don't blow bubbles. They don't, I know this, they don't do that. And then a little face popped out. I was like, oh, that's a snapping turtle. That's a snapping turtle. What's it doing? And this is what it was doing. Sorry, hold on. Sorry, folks. Come on. Sorry, everybody. That was a good lead up too. What's wrong with me? There we go. So this is what it was doing. It was mating. So that is the male snapping turtle on the bottom, romantically biting the neck skin of the female snapping turtle. And I had heard about this, like how snapping turtles mate, and oh man, it is like, it's nuts. It is like, it was, to our eyes, it's super violent. I mean, it's what's kept them going for a lot longer than we've been around. So they're, you know, that's works for them. And I was watching this scene, and every time they did something new, I'm like, I can't tell this story in just one image. So I wanted to get these still moments. I wanted to get the crazy moments. So let me go through what I did to tell this story. And this was shot with the camera that I showed you earlier. Once again, this could have been done on an iPhone. I was standing right there on the bank. They did not care about me. You know, I was there for a couple minutes and then I left. But once again, this could have been your point and shoot. This could have been an iPhone, no problem. So tender moment, if you will. There is the female with its claw in the male's eye saying, I don't like whatever you were doing there. And this was happening so fast that I just had to get the picture and then look at it later because it was just a ball of action. So there's, you know, there's a busier photo. There's, you know, kind of what you expect. You know, there are all these scenes where they, you know, they're kind of this pinning down stuff. Just a wild scene. I mean, that tail is a dinosaur's tail. Like this little entangling thing was just so crazy to see. And I'll go back to the start. I put these out in an order for a reason. There's a bit of an arc here, you know, on Instagram and Facebook. Be really conscious of how you lay out your photos. People are going to go through them the way you lay them out, and that's going to tell a story. So this story kind of worked for me. You know, my second photo, next photo, you know, this, and I wanted to close on that. I don't know if that's post mating or they're just catching their breath or whatever. And so that's my little series there. And you know, I took 674 photos in the time that I was there doing that. My finger basically didn't come off the shutter. The action was happening fast. I didn't know where they were going to come up or when. So I just kept shooting, you know, trying to land that. So this is just another form of storytelling. Is kind of the multiple image thing, but you can see here we're a little. It's not a huge scene, so that's kind of a, you know, it's a bit of a tighter shot, a little bit wider, getting tighter again, and this is just pure detail. So, you know, whenever I come across deer, I love shooting the deer's feet because their hooves are so beautiful in the mud or the snow. Those little detail things can totally help you tell a story. So when I lay my pictures out on Instagram, if I'm doing like multiples, or on Facebook, I like to have a beginning, middle, and an end. Have a bit of an arc. You know, there's not always a story that great, but try to, you know, get a couple different photos and lay them out in that way. I'm going to end my kind of talking here and then move over to questions about keeping animals safe. It's a privilege. It really is. It's such a privilege to be able to photograph wildlife, urban wildlife in this city. And it's incredible. And you don't want to spoil those moments by doing something dumb or something harmful to the animal. So I just have a couple of rules for myself, and everyone's going to have their own sort of standards and what they go by. My first is I never let an animal get between myself and the road. So if I'm walking and there's a deer and then there's like a busy road, I'm just going to keep going. If I stop to shoot, crack a branch, I don't want that deer getting spooked and running into traffic. That would be a nightmare. The other thing is I never spend too much time with an animal. Like I always want to spend more, but I kind of just take my photo and go. There's no point in sticking around to where you're like scaring them or you know, getting them frustrated and they take off. You don't want to spoil that trust. I'm sure some of you saw what happened on the boardwalk recently with the fox kits. That happened last year. That happened. Looks like it happened again this year. We don't totally. I don't know if Toronto Wildlife Center has confirmed if it was a dog or not. But it was us being too close. They had to put up fences there around those fox kits because people have just gone like nuts. Everybody was there with their camera, and you know, you don't need the photo that bad. It's not worth it. Like leave babies alone, especially this time of year. If you come across something, great, you know, okay, well, look at that. Get your picture, get out of there, right? Don't stick around. You're gonna spoil it, and something bad's gonna happen, and you're gonna feel bad. I don't share locations of my photos. I know earlier I said that you know, we'll look at other people's photos. If they post locations, I'm going to steal that info. But I don't share. I don't want to celebritize any of these animals. I don't want to have crowds of people coming around. And you know, on a more pleasant side with these animals, be generous with your stories when you get these photos. If people want to know the backstories behind them, they're DMing you, they're writing in the comments, like take your time, you know, have a proud moment, share your stories. That's cool, right? Get people hooked. You're all out there shooting. So, you know, share and be generous. I'm going to end on just one really quick thing. This talk is called 42 Mammals. And when I had spoken to Stephanie about this, and I had spoken to press about this project, I was using a list of 42 mammals that call Toronto home. I got really suspicious about this list, specifically the river otter. And I'm going on a lot of Facebook forums. People are sending me stuff. I wasn't seeing any river otters. And I started Googling around Toronto river otters, saw a couple. Oh, that's the couple from the zoo. A couple of references. So I put on Instagram. I said, hey, DM me if you've seen one. I'm curious. Got a couple pictures. These were all mink. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but like I was seeing mink. It was like, oh, interesting. Okay. So I spoke to a reporter at the Star about this, and she did some digging, and she was able to come up with a couple photos and videos from Toronto over the last decade. So there were like one or two. So something can be functionally extinct, and what that means is it's here, but it's not really making a biological impact. So there could be the possibility that river otters come like every couple of years. They're not really breeding here per se, or there were like, you know, so few. Since that article came out, I got emails from 3 or 4 people saying, hey, there's a river otter here. And it was the same location. I don't know if these people knew each other, but there's like definitely one in the city right now. So I don't know. I'm not a biologist. I'm not the one to kind of to put a definitive answer to this, but I guess that's kind of up to you. Are the river otter in the city? I don't know. So my list, I'm saying, yeah, we'll say a soft 42, 41, 42, who knows? And then I'm moving into bats. This summer I'll be going into bats. So hopefully there are fewer bats than on this list because they're really hard to photograph. It would make my life a lot easier if I found out some of those bats weren't actually here, so I could stop trying. This is great. We're going to open this up to questions. So yeah, Stephanie, I'm excited to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Andrew. Another wonderful webinar. And those photos, you are getting so many comments in the chat on both Facebook and in Zoom saying they're just phenomenal. Awesome. They're really, really cool.
Thanks,
yeah, and I was so excited about the snapping turtle photos. I saw those on your Instagram. Go follow Andrew on his Instagram page because he has some great photos on there. Dennis has actually posted in the Q&A chat at the very, very beginning. So we'll start out with his. How much extra weight would the battery grip add to your camera?
Not a ton. It's basically plastic with some electronics in there, and it's one full extra battery. So it's two batteries that sit beside each other, and then this ghost pen goes into the battery hole. So I don't know, like as much as a ham sandwich, I would say.
Which you don't bring along with you.
What?
No space for vodka or ham sandwiches. Janet has asked, do you recommend any camera clubs for someone just starting?
I know that the Toronto field naturalists, these guys are starting, I kind of have a camera club that they're starting up with. I had a chat with the guy that runs it the other day. It seems really cool. They have like challenges every month or something like that. So yeah, they're great. Toronto field naturalists, and they're all really nice. Yeah, is there anything through Riverwood, Stephanie?
Not like a club. We do have Dave Taylor, who is a wildlife photographer as well, and he leads workshops sometimes to kind of help with your wildlife photography, and he'll go out on the field with you and do stuff like that, which we can't do right now, but hopefully soon. But we don't have a club. That'd be something we should look into. That'd be really cool. Paige has asked, which mammal species from Toronto did you find the most difficult to photograph? And I think you got that question actually in your last webinar as well.
Well, of the 41, 42, I think I'm like 15 in at this point. And I should say, I should have said this off the top. I'll only accept a good photo. Like it's got to be a good photo. So something blurry in the background where I'm like, no, it's a fox. Like I swear that's a fox. That doesn't count. So it's got to be a good photo. I'm still struggling to get a good beaver photo. I know the photo I want. I haven't got it yet, which is insane, right? I get texts from people like daily. My mom's like, oh, I saw a beaver, and it was like out on a log, just like chilling. I'm like, okay, great. I wasn't there. I don't care. So yeah, beavers. It sounds idiotic, but that's been a struggle.
Okay, and actually, Jamie posted on our Facebook about a river otter that was spotted at RBG in 2020, and there's an article on it. So she posted that on our Facebook. If you want to check out the article, anybody that's interested, that's really cool. Niela, I hope I am pronouncing that correct, has asked, what has been the most intimate encounter with an animal while photographing?
I had the strangest thing with a deer, and it wasn't a fawn. It was a yearling. It was doing its thing in the late winter there, and I had this kind of spot. Like I saw there was some reeds, and I sat there and I was kind of taking pictures, and I was getting ready to go. And they kind of walked in front of my only kind of source of getting out of there, my only exit. And they both saw me, and they just kept getting closer and closer and closer. And I was like, this is like, they see me, right? I was kind of like doing these subtle movements, so they see me kind of picking up my lens, and you see me, right? Like, and they would see me and kind of watch me and go eating, and they got closer and closer. And like, I have pictures like just of mom's snout, like just the nose, like just the tip of the nose, and the baby was the young one was so pretty. Let me no, you know, I sorry, I don't have that. But it was like, it was incredible. And I just stopped shooting after a while, and there was snow and it was nice. And I just put the camera down and I just enjoyed it. And that was definitely, like, in terms of like proximity and kind of like, in terms of like feeling, that was super intimate. That was awesome.
That's so awesome. A question coming from Christy. She would like to know who the author of the book Beaver is. I think you might have said it was Eager or something.
Yeah, the name is Eager. I think it's Ben Goldfarb.
Yeah.
The Toronto Library has it. They have a couple e-copies, so if you have the Overdrive app, you can get it through there. Really well written book. It's a lot of Canadian content too. He's American and he covers a lot of the states. But obviously it's Beavers, you know, the Latin name, it's, you know, Castor Canadeni or whatever it is. So it's Canadian, right? So there's a lot of that in there too. It's a great book.
Awesome. We have a somewhat funny question coming in from Facebook from Patrick. If you could choose to ride a coyote or a wolf into battle, which would you choose, Andrew?
Dire wolf.
A dire wolf. Yeah.
I'm not going on a wolf. Coyotes are little. Coyotes are like quite like surprisingly small. Despite the photos, whatever you see, wolves are a bit bigger, but it's got to be a dire wolf. Don't ride animals. Don't ride wild animals.
So I'll give everyone a couple more minutes if you have any more questions for Andrew. I have my own question actually for you, Andrew. I have experienced this thing before where you see really cool wildlife and you're confused if you should take out your camera and fumble with it and try to get a cool photo, or if you should stop and just watch it before it goes. What do you recommend for people that just see things coming through? Maybe you haven't chosen to go out on your day to photograph anything. What do you usually choose to do? Do you fumble with your camera quickly and try to get a shot, or?
I'm gonna answer your question with a question. What are you doing with your camera in a bag? Like what?
Yeah,
like, come on.
You're right.
Have it out. Have it out.
I know.
Maybe I should have said this earlier. When as I'm going into the forest, when I get out in my car, I get my settings like ready to go.
Right.
And if your camera's in your bag and you didn't get the shot, then that's because your camera's in your bag.
It's so true.
But yeah, you know what? It depends, and there are different bags, right? Like this always makes me laugh when I see a camera bag with Velcro on it. Like what? Or even like buckles. Like that's loud.
Yeah.
You know, you're in here. You're gonna scare something. You're gonna scare something away. So just have it ready to go.
I know. And you know what? Since driving around in my car, I now always have my camera like ready to go, because the amount of wildlife I've seen just driving and then having my camera in my trunk or something in the back and being like, no, why wasn't it on the front seat when I pulled over, right?
Whenever we're driving through Algonquin, my wife knows she's driving because I got to be ready to go.
Exactly. And that's where, like, a lot of the time, I had a wolf one time walk out and I pulled over and I was ready to take a photo and it started howling. And I was fumbling with my camera and didn't get the shot and didn't get to experience the moment either because I just wasn't ready. So
you got the memory.
You're right. There you go. And there was one final question, which I think you'll have a good answer for this. It's more about ethics, I think. But somebody had said, so where do we find these mammals? I think referring to the title of the webinar. But I think you kind of answered this question with the ethics thing, is that we don't tell where we have found these animals, right?
Yeah, but you know, not specifically, but this is the thing. I'm finding more and more talking to people that are out doing this thing. It's like, you know, where you don't. And you know, because you go out and you come across these things. Sunrise, sunset, that's when animals are most active. When you go out and you see a deer, you're like, oh, like that's what a deer, that's where a deer likes to be. That makes sense. Oh, that's where a fox likes to be. That makes sense. Oh man, like that's the kind of tree trees that owls like. you learn by, experiential stuff and being out there and doing, and that's where all this comes from. This is where this happens. You find these things once again by research and being out. You're not gonna find, you're generally not gonna find a deer walking through an apartment complex, right? Get out there, like get out in the big green spaces, and you're gonna see stuff.
And I think it's more satisfying, right? When you find your own animal and not follow something that's posted on Facebook 50 times. Some sort of bird. And I guess we'll just end on this last question for you, Andrew. Teresa has asked, which season do you have more photos of wildlife in?
I started this project in the winter, and I love shooting in the winter. I adore it. Like, the snow is awesome. You actually see more. I think you see more in the winter. There's less active in the winter, but you can see through all the trees. Like, there's not there's not the foliage that you have in the summer. So I don't know. It's hard to say. There are more animals active in the summer and spring, but there are. You could see better in the winter and see further. The snow just adds so much to your photos, as does the rain and the fog. But I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite season or if there is a best season. Sunrise and sunset, like, those are the best times when animals are active. Do we have like 30 seconds, Stephanie?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to show you guys something. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this.
No rush at all.
Kind of a secret. So who wants to see? I'm getting away from like the wildlife in nature, kind of photography, and that last question just made me want to talk about this. I really want to do a better job at showing wildlife as a part of the city. I want to show that we are sharing, like, all of our space with wildlife. So I probably look really tired to a lot of you. I don't always look like this, but I've been spending a lot of nights outside in parks where I probably shouldn't be at 3 a.m. With a new camera setup that I've been working on. It's the camera, it's a couple of toned down flashes, and a sensor, like an IR sensor that the animal passes it, the heat triggers the sensors, triggers the camera, and triggers the flashes. So why I'm doing this and being out at night and ordering parts from the UK, because I want to start doing more stuff like this. So this is what I've been kind of working towards for a couple of months, and I'm finally, like, deploying it and getting it ready. I want to show animals as a part of the city, as, it's not just us here. And I'm trying to do this storytelling and this kind of photography to get that point across. And, as much as I love animals out in nature, there's not too much urban about that. So this is, hopefully you're going to be seeing some more of this from me. And yeah, just that question about where are the mammals. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. And this is my answer to that.
What an awesome photo. Do you want to just quickly plug your Instagram as well, Andrew? Because I didn't post it in the chat. But
okay. So it's my name. It's Andrew_Budziak, Budziak, Andrew_Budziak. And that's where all my stuff is. I also have a video series called Edge of Frame, which kind of documents what I've been doing. It's kind of goofy. It's fun. There are going to be some new episodes coming out really, really soon. So that's all up there. Also, like, DM me. I chat. If you have questions, before you email me or message me about gear, I have a story, like one of those safe story things, all about the gear I use. So you can look there. It's all there. But that's how I chat. It's Instagram.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew, for your time. Again, what a great presentation. I hope that we can see you in more presentations for TRC in the future.
Sure.
And everyone go follow him on Instagram. It's a lot of fun to watch what he's up to. So thank you once again. And thank you, Thomas and Kathy, our volunteers tonight, for joining us on their evenings and helping us out in the chat. And if you have any more questions for Andrew, you can always email me. You'll get my email after this presentation, and I can forward that to Andrew too for you. So thank you, Andrew. Everyone have a great evening and happy almost weekend. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good night.